It's time to start solidifying our fantasy football teams and getting ready for the playoffs and to win championships. We're going to give you some buys to do that, starting with Kyren Williams. Look, Kyren continues to get the lion's share of the work in an offense that went to London and was very quickly up like 3 scores against this team, okay? Against this Jacksonville Jaguars
with
team.
no Puka, mind you.
With no Puka. And so even just looking, though, a lot of people were concerned about Kyren Williams potentially splitting snaps with Blake Corum, which I kind of understand. But, 42-24 today. They split rushing attempts 12-12, and so people are definitely going to overreact about that.
Again, if you watch that game, fourth quarter.
Exactly. They were up by a ton. Corum was always going to get more run in this game. The fact of the matter is also, when you've seen the Los Angeles Rams in competitive games this season, for example, the game against the 49ers,
yep.
Look at what Kyren did, and look how much they had Blake Corum on the field. And so, again, I think there's just a lot of dialogue about what the role is there in LA for Kyren Williams and how much work he's actually going to get. And in his last 4 games, you've seen 13, 14, 13, and 12 carries as well, compared to 18, 17, and 20 at the beginning of the year. I think there's, a lot of things that would make somebody want to sell. And I just think that when you have a running back that is still the workhorse, so to say, in an offense that is probably top 5 in the league, they really are. I think PFF, they're top 5 right now. And you're talking about playing in week 13, you play Carolina. Week 14, you play Arizona. You play Detroit in week 15, that's a little bit tougher. But you play Seattle in week 16. You play Atlanta in week 17, obviously a tough matchup there. But you have some very favorable matchups down the stretch for Kyren Williams. Okay, I didn't even mention they play New Orleans after the bye week. And that's the other thing with Kyren Williams kind of having this loss of momentum going into a bye week. I think there are going to be opportunities to buy Kyren Williams because I think the teams that, have Kyren Williams may need to sell him off because of the bye and because that maybe they lost a couple games because of his last couple performances. So with that, I would be sitting trades for Kyren. When you're looking at what you could potentially trade away for Kyren Williams, though, you probably have to go quite a few spots down. I probably wouldn't trade Javonte for him straight up. I probably prefer Javonte the rest of the season, to be honest with you. Bucky Irving, I wouldn't give. When you get down to the Quinshon Judkins, Derrick Henry, Cam Scatterbo, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall range, I would probably send most of those guys for Kyren Williams at this point. So if you can trade some of those running backs like 14 through 20 in fantasy football on the expert rankings rest of the season, for Kyren Williams, I would probably do it. There have been some other trades that we saw go down in the trade finder for Kyren. I saw one that was essentially, like I mentioned, Breece Hall for Kyren Williams. I would be totally fine doing something like that. You've got a lot of you've also got a fair amount of receiver. Like this one is Sam Laporta, JCM, and Cooper Kupp for Kyren Williams. If you can consolidate and get a higher upside flex option with Kyren, I would do that as well. And so Kyren, I just think at this point, like he's going to start being sold for more flex level prices than anything. If you can get Kyren Williams as a flex option on your fantasy football team, he's a league winning flex option. And I don't know how achievable that will be. It will depend on the team that's selling him, how desperate they are, and how competitive your league is. But I would definitely be looking and seeing what his price is this week because I think he could be a good buy that pays dividends down the stretch in fantasy football.
I think Krosky Merritt at this point is getting to a price range where it's probably worth just biting because where he's currently being priced, there's not really any running back in that range that is currently reliable. And with Krosky Merritt, he's been pretty slow the last couple of weeks after he had a nice 27-pointer 3 weeks ago, but the volume has been there at a higher level than we have ever seen. The touchdowns just have not come. So 17 carries last week. This past week, he had 13 carries and a game script that really should not have been friendly to running backs at all. But he still had 13 carries on the day. And by the way, Jaden Daniels got hurt. So they're going to have to lean on the run game even more here, probably in the near future with Daniels out. And that does bode well for a guy like Krosky Merritt, who they do want to be the feature back there in that offense. You've got, again, he's going to be falling down rankings here very soon, but if you can move Chuba Hubbard for Krosky Merritt, Jordan Mason for Krosky Merritt, Chase Brown for Krosky Merritt, I would move any one of those running backs for him because here's the difference between Krosky Merritt and all those other guys. Chuba is in a 50-50 split backfield. Jordan Mason is only as relevant as Aaron Jones's hamstrings. And then Chase Brown is in a offense that is literally just going to pass the ball for the rest of the season because they will constantly be down. And even in his best game that you saw all season, he can't find the end zone because the receivers, the tight ends, everyone not named Chase Brown is finding the end zone. So with Krosky Merritt, if you can get a running back in that price range, I would go for it. Just make a little pivot there because I do think he's a better upside shot rest of the season.
Yeah, one guy that's actually been on a little bit of a slow roll recently is Rome Odunze. And Rome, like the main issue is,
Touchdown
looking at the first 4 games of the season, he scored 5 touchdowns in those 4 games. And in the last 2 games after the bye week, he scored 5 points in each of these games. His targets have dropped. His receptions have dramatically dropped. He's had 2 receptions in each of the last 2 games. Essentially identical stat lines here. 2 receptions for 32 and 2 receptions for 31 yards, and has had no touchdowns. Now, why has this happened? Because theoretically, New Orleans was a slam dunk matchup for Rome Odunze. What did you say?
Swift.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's been part of it, is the running backs. Even Common Unguy today was very, very efficient. But with Rome, I mean, they've continued to get a lot of guys involved there. Like they can continue to get Zacchaeus involved. Like, I mean, he is a guy that, that Luther Burden, I don't know what Burden did today, but Luther Burden, at least last week, was fairly involved as well. And so you're just seeing, it's a little bit of a slow. He had 3 points. He only had 2 targets today. So, again, I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before Rome Odunze gets back involved at a high level in this offense. The thing is, against New Orleans, they were obviously crushing New Orleans. There was really no reason for them to utilize Rome Odunze or pass the ball for that matter, which is why the running backs kind of kicked butt, is because they were leading by a bunch. And so I'll kind of, write this one off as like, Rome Odunze should have had, I'm pretty sure in the Washington game, he had at least one big play called back, and so he should have actually had more points when you're looking at it contextually. The New Orleans game, I think you can kind of write off to they were winning by a bunch of points, and their defense had they had a pick six and a bunch of stuff, and so I don't think they needed Rome. I'm personally not worried about it. Like, his usage has been elite so far this season, and I'm betting that it's going to get back up to that level. I think Water will find its level with Swifty as well, and I think they're going to have to rely on their passing game a little bit more, and it's only a matter of time before Rome Odunze starts hauling in more targets, and also, again, he will occasionally score a touchdown or 2, but I don't think his ceiling is entirely dependent on scoring a touchdown or not. And so, looking at the upcoming matchups, this is probably the most important thing for Rome Odunze. You have Baltimore in Week 8, Cincinnati in Week 9, the New York Giants in Week 10. Mm-hmm. So these are 3 matchups made from heaven for Rome Odunze coming up. So I don't think you're going to be able to get him any cheaper than what you can get him now after those 3 matchups. And when you're looking at the trade finder for Rome Odunze, the one thing that sticks out is he's going way too cheap. I mean, Garrett Wilson for Rome Odunze, I would trade Rome Odunze easy right now. DeAndre Swift went straight up for Rome Odunze. Like, that's ridiculous. Jordan Mason went straight up for Rome Odunze. Again, these are trades that we're using the trade finder. So these are actual trades that have gone down in real leagues, which, again, I know it's not happening. Stephon Diggs and Jalen Hurts for Rome Odunze, I would do. Breece Hall for Rome Odunze, I would do. David Montgomery for Rome Odunze, I would do. I've seen a couple Cam Scatterboos for Rome Odunze. I think that's even. Waddle for Odunze, I think that's close to fair, but I'd probably lean Odunze still. So, I mean, overall, here's a Darren Waller and Zach Charbonnet for Odunze. You've just seen the prices that he's going for. He's no longer being sold for top 8 prices. He's being sold for like top 15 prices. I still think he's going to be very involved from a production standpoint in that offense. And so I'm going to give Rome Odunze here. I think it's a good time to go trade for him before he has, again, a dynamite schedule the next couple weeks. If you want to check out our full rest of season rankings and our weekly rankings every week, you can also use our trade calculator if you're going to make trades so you don't ruin your fantasy football team, and you can plug your team into our My Teams tool to see where you rank so far in the season and where you rank for the rest of the season as well. You can check it out. I've got the link in the pinned comment. It's completely free to do all that. It's free. Just create an account with code DOMAIN. You can access all of our tools on the site, and they can help you win your fantasy football league. So go check it out. Again, it's free. Create an account. Use code DOMAIN when you sign up. You'll have full access to it, and you can use all those tools. But next buy here.
Ashton Jeanty is going to be our next buy here. And I know it's a running back in a bad offense, but his volume did go down quite a bit this week. Again, in a matchup where we expected Kansas City to dominate with Rashee Rice coming back, and Vegas was kind of screwed before that game even started, honestly. And they're going to have better matchups in the coming weeks that are going to be more friendly for like a run-heavy game script where Jeanty can actually make more of a dent from a production perspective. But he's been very solid since he had his breakout game that was, like 30 points a few weeks ago. He's had a couple of like 10, 12, 15 pointers, and then this week back in the single digits. So, look, the thing with Jeanty is Meyers is now out and banged up. Bowers is banged up and out for who knows how long. Trey Tucker's looking like the wide receiver one in that offense. Geno Smith can't stop throwing interceptions. Geno Smith only threw the ball 16 times today against Kansas City, and Jeanty only ran the ball 6 times. They were just trying to get out of Kansas City as fast as they possibly could because that game was over by halftime. So again, from a volume perspective alone, people are going to look at this and panic. And I'm telling you, this is a sham of a game from a fantasy production perspective for a guy like Jeanty specifically. Some trades that I've seen go down, according to the trade finder, are again very good up tier target right now. Jeanty is after a couple of down games. Kenneth Walker and Addison, you can trade up to get Ashton Jeanty. That was one in a 12-team start 8. 8. You had another one, Genty for Lab McConkey and Rico Dowdle. So those types of ones, like if you can package a grouping of players and get up to Ashton Genty to get a running back upgrade, I think it's totally worth it if you have the wide receiver flexibility to sacrifice some depth there and go get this high upside elite level running back. I think it's very, very worth doing at the moment because this is probably the lowest you're going to see Genty ranked since before he had his breakout at the beginning of the season.
One guy that you could potentially play the market on right now in fantasy football is Jalen Waddle, who coming into this week was the wide receiver 13, and after this week will probably be a mid to low end wide receiver 2. 2.5 points in this game against Cleveland, in a game where it was just overall ugly for the Dolphins for a number of reasons. It was a kind of a sucky weather game, and so it was basically, hey, who can run the ball better and who has a better defense, and well, Cleveland has a better defense. Let's just say that. And also, they could run the ball better. Quinshon Judkins had 3 touchdowns in this game. It was 31-6. They brought Quinn Ewers in garbage time as well, and so Waddle was never going to have a good Waddle. Any of those guys were never going to have a good game in these conditions. And in this particular game against the Cleveland Browns defense, that's pretty respectable. I mean, their pass rush, it was never good. So with that, Jalen Waddle 2.5 points this week. I think there is an opportunity to buy him now. And, you're looking at his two games so far without Tyreek, 23 and 15 before this week, of course, a bit laying an egg. Next week they're playing at Atlanta. They're going to have to score a lot of points to even be in that game. And so you'll see them, I think, slinging the ball a lot. Baltimore the week after that, they're going to have Buffalo in week 10 and Washington in week 11 and then a bye week. And so, it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of schedule over the next couple weeks. But the thing about Waddle is, again, he is the main guy there. He had 4 targets today and again, only caught 1 of them. Again, it was just a super ugly day for that entire Dolphins offense. And I don't expect that to be the case every week, even though the Dolphins are looking like one of the worst teams in the league.
Not to mention the weather.
It's not going to. Yeah, that's what I said. Like the conditions in today's game were. This was never going to be good for these guys. And so, in terms of trading for Waddle, I think that. Again, I haven't really seen a ton of trades go down since the games happened this week, but I do think he's going to be going cheaper. Just looking at some trades for Waddle recently. Jordan Addison and Isaiah Pacheco for Waddle, basically consolidating up to Waddle. I like that a lot. Brian Thomas for Waddle, I would do, especially now that Brian Thomas is hurt. That one just happened. Genty for Waddle, I'd probably take Genty. Breece Hall for Waddle, though, I'd probably take Waddle. Kamara for Waddle, I would take Waddle. Kamani Vidal for Waddle, I would take Waddle. David Montgomery for Waddle, I would take Waddle. A bunch of other trades here, like Zay and Khalil Shakir for Waddle's kind of a wash. Xavier Worthy and JCM for Jalen Waddle's fine. That's kind of a wash as well. Mooney and Kittle for Waddle, I would do. So again, these are all real trades that have gone down in fantasy leagues. It's all going to be dependent on, your league. In terms of where we have him ranked an expert consensus on the site, which this might be a little bit more accurate. He's still going around guys like Xavier Worthy, who I would trade for Jalen Waddle. Deebo Samuel is maybe because he's kind of banged up right now, which is kind of par for the course with Deebo, to be honest with you. You've got guys, if you wanted to sell high on Lad McConkey and get Jalen Waddle, I'd be totally fine with that. Marvin Harrison Jr., QJ, DK Metcalf, all those guys I would trade for Waddle. So it's going to be league dependent, right? You just got to find the right price. Bottom line is, I think he might be available in some of your leagues, and I think if anybody's looking to sell high, or even say potentially sell low on Jalen Waddle, I would at least gauge interest and see what his going price is going to be in your league.
Breece Hall is certified inconsistent rest of season as long as he is in this situation, but here's the big news, folks. Justin Fields probably going to be benched in the backup for the rest of the year. It looks like, again, they benched him in the middle of this game because it was so bad against Carolina, and he might be the backup. Tyrod looks awful, and he looks better than Justin Fields. Like, that's how bad it is. And I do think that bodes well for Breece Hall because you kind of take away the rushing threat of Justin Fields, who can take away some of that rushing touchdown upside in the red zone. But also just in general, if they can get this passing attack going whatsoever from now until like Garrett Wilson comes back, then you're going to have more opportunity for Breece Hall, who had 11 carries today, again, in a game where they had to pass the ball more than they would have wanted to. Look, it's ugly. I understand that. But again, very similar to JCM, he's just getting to a price where no one is reliable at the running back position. It's gross across the board. And when you're looking at some of these trades, like we were just talking to Tom today in one of his leagues, he traded Kyron and Cooper Kupp for Breece and Zay Flowers. Like, you're doing a running back downgrade, but you're essentially getting a wide receiver 2 for free on top. Like, that's how Breece Hall is currently being viewed in terms of valuation right now is essentially just an add-on to a wide receiver too, like Zay Flowers. Some other trades like upgrades Matthew Golden and Pollard for Breece Hall, for example. Again, as gross as it is for Breece Hall, his upside is objectively higher than Tony Pollard's, plus a throw-in like Golden who you can barely flex. There are some other ones here like QJ and Rico Dowdle for Breece Hall. You have Jalen Waddle for Breece Hall and Jordan Addison. Like that's a wide receiver downgrade, and you're just getting Breece Hall essentially thrown in there, who is a running back one in an offense. Again, I understand it's bad, but there's no one else there. If you had any concerns about Braylon Allen, especially in the red zone, which are totally merited, he's on IR. He's going to be out for quite a while. Was it season ending for Braylon Allen?
Yeah,
I think it may have been season ending for Braylon Allen.
Seasoning, but I think he probably will be out.
He's supposed to be out for a while. They said I think what was it, like 8 weeks at least.
It's 8 weeks.
So not very good. So in the near future, like Breece is going to be the guy there. And again, you can come back and you can disagree with me and say I won't invest in a running back in a bad offense. At this price, I think you should.
So last week on this channel, we told you the truth, and the truth was
you can't handle the truth.
We didn't really see Travion Henderson carving out a role in New England anytime soon, and that did not change today against the Titans. It did not. I mean, the snap share, 49 snaps for Ramondre Stevenson compared to Terrell Jennings' 8 and Travion Henderson's 9. Straight up, if you drafted Travion, I think at this point you're talking about like a serious bust because we are all through 7 weeks now. It's really bad.
It's going up and up for Ramondre.
They're giving him more of the share every single week.
This was the best he looked all season too.
Yeah, and then when you're looking at the chart as well, let's bring up the chart. For all plays 47 for 47 for Ramondre and 7 for Travion. Early downs 32-4, goal line 2-0, 2-minute drill 3-0, third down 7-3, short yard. So the only time really that like Travion, they gave him 4 early down carries, and they gave him 3 third down, and that was it. They're clearly like bringing him in to be like a passing game, screen game, get him in space package, which is what he does best. We just figured there would be a complementary running skill set that would go with it, and they would eventually get him involved. But when he runs, I mean, again, I don't know what his efficiency metrics were like today, but I know that they couldn't have been good. He had 2 attempts for 5 yards. So I mean, because I saw the 2 runs, and they just like it's just nah. So here's all that to say. Ramondre is somebody that people are probably never going to admit is a guy that when you're talking about his price for somebody you can plug into your flex spot. Somebody when you're talking about this offense, I mean, what's their record now? The Patriots?
Are they 4-2?
I think they. I mean, this is an offense. This is a team that's like trying to do damage. An offense that's like trying to do damage. And now Travion Henderson is getting the majority of the work there,
and he's doing the damage.
And you can flex him, and he's super cheap.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a super low risk, high reward buy in the sense that, 16.8 points was his best or his second best game of the season. And he's very hit or miss. 4-21, 4-5, 14-1, and 16, right? It's every other week at this point. Mm-hmm. And with Cleveland next week, it's going to be probably Cleveland and Atlanta. Well, yeah, it's that's kind of tough. So I'm almost tempted to say this. Ramondre is somebody I would probably check the price of now, but I would maybe buy in 2 weeks after the Cleveland and Atlanta matchups, because those are tough matchups. I think you'll be able to get him even cheaper than you are. That said, right now you're seeing some of the swaps for Ramondre go down, like Chase Brown. I'm fine pivoting to Ramondre there. I really am. Tony Pollard, I definitely would. Quarterbacks, you moving a quarterback, like if you have 2 quarterbacks on your team for Ramondre Stevenson's fine. Trey Tucker for Ramondre went down, which I'm cool with that as well. Ellick and Jacoby Meyers for Ramondre Stevenson.
Yes.
So like, I mean, this is his price though. Kamara for Ramondre and Jordan Mason is definitely a good trade. Tyler Algier for Ramondre, he's just cheap, and he's not ranked highly anywhere, and I don't think you're going to see people getting advice anywhere because Travion is ranked so high, and we have Ramondre. I think you do. We both have Ramondre over Travion by a decent margin now, right? So like, look, I don't think Travion's dead in the water, but I think it's worth paying this price for Ramondre and hoping that he might be a flex option for you, especially if you have a deeper league where you're struggling at flex. This guy's getting guaranteed volume, so. Let's see what happens with Ramondre, but I think he's definitely a good trade target this week, somebody you can go send offers for.
And then Terry McLaurin. Again, we've been doing this for the last few weeks where any guy who's coming back from injury or close to coming back from injury or suspension, we've done this with Evans, we've done it with Rashee Rice, we've done it with Kittle. This week is going to be Terry McLaurin. He was very close to coming back this week. Pretty last second, they declared him out. I understand Jaden Daniels is now going to be out, which is a concern. But Deebo Samuel is now banged up as well, which you see this every year with Deebo too. Who knows if he's going to miss additional time and if he'll be 100% once he's back healthy. So if Terry comes back at the right time where Deebo's banged up and Marcus Mariota just kind of has to depend on his reliable guys, I think Terry could be that guy. And again, as cheap as he's going to be at this point in time where he's provided absolutely nothing for anyone who invested in Terry to begin the season, like he's going for very, very cheap. Jacoby Meyers for Terry McLaurin. Again, trade examples here from the Trade Finder. Travion Henderson for Terry McLaurin. This is the type of stuff that we're talking about with a guy like Henderson, where people are just going to believe and believe and believe. And you can believe all you want, but I want to score fantasy points in the near future. And I know that I'm going to get fantasy points from Terry McLaurin in the near future, the nearer future than Travion Henderson, if we're being honest.
So again, hopefully that helps. I mean, right now, we're starting to think about playoffs. I think next week on this video, we're going to start focusing on guys with like really good playoff schedules, and we're going to give buys for every type of team on next week's buys. We'll give you know, if you're already looking at a buy, then we're going to give you these buys. If you're still in the mix, we'll give you these buys. If you really need to claw back, here's the guys you need. Do us a huge favor. If you enjoy the video, drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed as well if you play fantasy football. We appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you here soon.